Before we get started today's episode, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, U.Home. U.Home offers a curated selection of wood-based incense and sprays, each infused with the captivating scents of East Africa and the Middle East. So whether you're looking to create a serene ambiance in your home or looking for the perfect Eid presents for your family members, U.Home has you covered. Visit U.Home using the link in the description to get 5% off your order or use code DCMY at checkout, 5% off. And let's get back to the episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to another episode of Muslim Minds. As you could probably tell, the setup is a little bit different. We're playing around trying to see what works in our office space, alhamdulillah. But this is a new setup. Hopefully this is what's going to be for the next few episodes, inshallah. But speaking of this episode, bismillah, today we have Imam Farhan from Dar al-Hijrah, who's been the resident Imam there for
3 years.
For 3 years, alhamdulillah. And we're just going to be talking to him, inshallah, about his journey, his experiences, and any advice that he might have for the youth in the area and just anyone that wants to get involved within the Muslim community, bismillah.
Inshallah.
So, welcome to the podcast.
Jazakallah khair.
Guys, I want to start by asking, for those who don't know you, who is Imam Farhan?
Imam Farhan is a student of knowledge and a father, and the Imam of Dar al-Hijrah.
Tamam, inshallah. Where'd you grow up?
I
grew up
local
to the area?
No, actually I'm a transplant. I was born in Ohio. I stayed there until I think about 4th or 5th grade. We lived in Jersey for a couple of years, and then I went to Connecticut. In Connecticut, I finished middle school, high school, and college. I graduated from UConn. And then we were in California for a year. And then I went overseas. I went to Pakistan. I was there for about like 6 to 8 months. I had applied to Quran in the meantime. And while I was there, I got accepted to Quran, and I went to study there.
Inshallah. So what kind of brought you to the Nova area?
The job. So
job.
I was hired as the Imam here. I was Imam in Jersey before I came here. I wasn't really planning on moving, but the offer was really good. So I took the offer, and here I am.
Alhamdulillah. Was this something that you've kind of always wanted to do? I'm guessing, like,
no.
Growing up?
No, actually, it wasn't. Being Desi, the primary choices that you have is either being a doctor and engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually pre-med. I'm a biology major.
Oh, wow, mashallah.
I have my degree in biology, and I think it was my second year in where I was like, no, I want to seek knowledge full time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was there was a lot of friction between myself and my parents, unfortunately, because of that. But when I was in Pakistan, some of my teachers over there, I told them, I was like, hey, this is what my parents want me to do. I want to seek knowledge. And they're like, listen, just finish your degree and then, kind of see where things go from there. So I came back to the States. I finished my degree. This was like, I think after I made Umrah. And that was like 2000, I think, 2001. I made Umrah. I went to Pakistan for a few months. I came back, finished my degree here. And then, alhamdulillah, I ended up at Imam Farhan University in Makkah.
How was that experience when you were there? How long were you there?
I was there for 10 years.
10 years?
Yeah.
Inshallah.
So how the acceptance process works over there is that it takes a little bit of time for them to accept you, number one. And then even after you get accepted, sometimes between the transitions. So you have the Mahad, which is the Arabic Language Institute. That's a 2-year program. Then you're accepted into what is the Kulliyah, which is the college. And from there, you can choose whatever specialty you want. And you get a bachelor's degree there. And then after that, there's master's, PhD, deciding how far, depending on how far you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So the years I was there, I took a year off when I was in the institute. My wife had come with my son at that point. When I was in the bachelor's program, I took 1 extra semester because I would have ended in the spring because they weren't doing acceptances for the higher studies programs until the beginning of the next year anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So they decided that, okay, now we're going to give people 1 year leave before they're able to accept it in the master's program. So it just kind of extended my studies, which is fine. Alhamdulillah, I was actually able to benefit a lot and sit with different mashayikh outside of the classes that I had in the university.
But you stayed stayed there?
No, I stayed there full time.
What was some of the experiences that you had outside of studying that kind of solidified in your mind that this is what I need to, like, this is, like, I'm here for the right reasons? Because I'm sure when you're there for, like, that many years, even, like, when you're doing your bachelor's, there's probably times where, like, maybe this isn't for me or where you found it kind of a little bit difficult. What kind of kept you there and pushed you through?
I love seeking knowledge. To this day, I really enjoy being part of discussions that are relevant, new researches that come out. I try to keep up to date on them and see what's happening. I keep in touch with a lot of my teachers and see what's going on and be like, hey, listen, what are some new researches that are going on, and what are some new studies that you guys have seen, new books that are printed. I'm still in touch with a lot of the bookstore owners over there. And I'm like, hey, any new books come out? And so it's really nice, and it's nice to stay up to date with those things. So I always had a passion for learning and seeking knowledge, and alhamdulillah, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to only increase me in that.
Allah.
The other thing, I think I would say it's a little bit more neutral, but it helped me understand what my role eventually would be as a da'i, which was dealing with the Saudis. The Saudis, they're very Bedouin people, and you have some that are good, some that are bad. They're human beings just like anyone else. The problem that a lot of the Western students actually had was adapting to their culture. So when you go over there, people have this misconception. It's like because they live in Makkah or Medina that these people are supposed to be just like the companions, right?
The best of the best.
And it's like, well, sometimes they're not like companions. Sometimes they're like, there were other people.
Yeah, that's very true.
that were with the companions that weren't so nice. And human beings will always be human beings, depending on where you are. And I actually got into an argument one time with one of my colleagues. There was a section that handled your passports and your visas and whatnot within the university itself.
Yeah.
So one of the officers that was there, old guy, and he was very difficult to deal with. Like he was just like a really tough old guy. And I walked in, and one of my classmates was sitting there, and I was like, "Oh, Ustad Zahrani, how are you doing? How's everything?" And part of their culture is like you kiss elders on the head. So I'll go kiss him on the head, ask him how his family, blah blah blah. And then after that small little introduction, he was like, how can I help you? I said, hey, listen, I got to travel. Is it possible that, you rushed this visa? Like, I'm really sorry. I wish I could have come earlier, etc. And my colleague goes, he's like, well, you're going to kiss up to everybody who you deal with? So I said, yeah, if I'm not able to humble myself in front of another Muslim, what makes me think that I can go anywhere else in the world and give da'wah if I'm not going to be humble and show humility? And I said, I'm making another Muslim happy. Did I do anything wrong? Did I oppress anyone? Did I take advantage of anyone? And he was just like, he got upset. I came back the next day. Ironically, he was still sitting there.
So he's fine. He didn't leave.
No, I'm sure he left.
Yeah.
I'm sure he left, and it's just like, qadar that he happened to be sitting there when I came back. And I was like, oh, it's not Zahrani, how's everything? Like the same thing. He's like, oh, tafadal, here you go. Like, I got took care of. I was like, I really appreciate it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your family. Blah, blah, blah. It's small formalities. And I turned to the brother. I was like, it pays to be nice. And, I just
You just walked out?
I just walked out. So learning how to integrate and deal with other cultures, I think it was a very humbling experience for me. And the more that we try to understand one another, the easier it becomes to navigate different cultures and different societies. While living in Saudi, a lot of my classmates, they would come back to the U.S. for the summers. I was one of the few that traveled to like Egypt. I went to Qatar, I went to Emirat, I went to Lebanon.
Seeking more knowledge.
It wasn't just seeking knowledge. It was like, hey, what's going on in some of these other countries, and I don't know when I'm going to have the opportunity to fly 2 hours to be in a completely new country. Because I'm in the area. I'm like, I'll be in a completely new country and in a completely new space. So they were really, really nice experiences. And again, learning humility, learning how to adapt to the culture of the people, teaching ourselves and how to let other people's guards down, approaching them with a smile. And you really learn about the Prophet ﷺ when he said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِيُتِمَّ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ, that I've been sent to perfect character, and the effect that character has on others. And it, subhanAllah, I always thought seeking knowledge was like, okay, well, this is halal, this is haram, and like I have to learn the different branches of fiqh, and this is how it's supposed to be categorized, and like the different terminologies that we're supposed to learn. And then I'm like, man, I just need to learn how to be a nice person. It's not that deep, and subhanAllah. Granted, all of those things, of course they help and they bolster, and they're supposed to help your experience and help who you are as an individual. But at the end of the day, like we have to be good people, and we have to be kind, we have to be nice, we have to be accepting. And whenever I think of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I always imagine like a being who you don't have to be around, you don't have to be on eggshells around him, and he's just so inviting a person. And I'm like, I wish that we could just get, like a sliver of that, so that people don't feel intimidated by us. People feel very welcome and comfortable the moment we walk into a space or we walk into a room. And sometimes I feel like, we need to create that aura of presence
Mhm.
and create that aura of like, I'm here, and we want that respect. But the respect that the Prophet ﷺ, drew from his companions and others, it was based on love. It wasn't on fear. And it's just really it really helps put things in perspective when you see a lot of these different people. And I remember my wife, she got upset one time. She was like, guy, he just took advantage of us and blah blah blah. And I was like, don't get angry, and just feel bad for him. That
Because you had to do that.
I mean, I'm not justifying what he did, and what he did was absolutely wrong, and he overcharged. I said, but getting upset it's just part of those negative traits that we have to keep work and pushing, keep pushing away, and we should be happy people.
Yeah.
Like that, that's essentially that's what a Muslim is. Why did everybody look forward to be around the Prophet ﷺ?
Because
Right,
they felt loved.
Because at least they felt loved, the positive energy that he
Yeah.
would give out. You know what I mean? Like, you know how, just think of a close friend that any of us have, and we just enjoy being around it.
Mhm.
Even if there's not a lot of conversation, it's like, I just like being around him because of the positive energy that
Yeah.
he gives off, and like he's so encouraging, he's so empowering, and that's who I imagine the Prophet ﷺ to be.
Alayhi Yeah, subhanallah. I think a lot of people lose sense of that, and they just put themselves first before other people.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, you also have to look out for yourself, but
Sure.
we're all human. We're
Mhm.
like, we're an ummah. We're like, what's the word for it? We function with those around us.
Yeah.
So if you're unable to function with those around you,
Yeah.
then you're not going to be able to look out for what's best for yourself as well.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I think
And we're allowed to pursue self-interest,
Yeah.
right? Like when I strive to Jannah, who do I want to get into paradise?
you.
Me, right?
Yeah.
If I'm in a room of 100 people and there was a call from this guy that said only one of you will get into paradise, guess who I'm going to hope that gets into paradise? Right?
You.
It's going to be me. So I think pursuing self-interest is completely normal. It's
Mhm.
regular. You know what I mean? We're always trying to get a better job. We're always trying to be more fit. We're always trying to be more upright. Those are great things. It should never be at the expense of others, right? That's where it becomes hard.
Definitely.
But pursuing self-interest, it's a very Islamic concept. There's nothing wrong with it. It's only at the expense of others, because that then becomes what, right? That then becomes oppression, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has categorically prohibited that.
Yeah. Going back a little bit to kind of your experiences when you were studying in Saudi, do you think that those experiences where you kind of had to understand how to deal with other people of different cultures, did you have those skills beforehand, or do you think that
Absolutely.
being there kind of is the reason why
Yeah.
now you're able to kind of understand more and be more understanding of people who have different cultures and beliefs in you?
So I think the fact that I was able to seek knowledge with good teachers, this complemented that. There are many students that I know, many of my colleagues, they went over there and they just came back very angry. So these like this and that and blah blah, and I'm like, I don't love or hate them any more than any other group of people. Like
Mhm.
to me, they're human beings, and if you deal with them as individuals, you know what happens. Well, I like him and I dislike him, and that's fine, right? That's completely reasonable. Instead of I dislike them,
All of them.
or
Mhm.
I like them. That's not a realistic expectation to keep. So I think by that seeking knowledge, looking at the prophetic lifestyle. My specialty was actually Kitab Sunnah, so we spent a lot of time reading a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. I hope that they had an effect on me, by
Yeah.
going through it and just reading about what he ﷺ did, how he interacted, and it's just amazing with all of the information that he ﷺ had, because of the direct communication he had with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was never policing people, right? It's like, for me, it's mind-boggling. I could only imagine any one of us that had that much knowledge kind of looking around and seeing things happen, but not policing people, correcting them, but not policing them like, hey, you need to do this, or you need to fix that, or you need to. And then I realized, like, man, if any of us were like that, who would want to be around me?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you need to fix your pants, and you need to fix your hair, and you didn't pray properly, and you didn't. The Prophet, the way he did it, it was so kind. It was so kind. They didn't even, like, nobody was ever offended by the way that he approached
He
them.
said it in a way that he just
It-
cared.
it was like it came from a place of love, right?
Mhm.
And it came from a place of care. And just like going back to your point about the selfishness, we police when we're selfish. That's why we're policing, because we want to flex our knowledge, right? Or we want to flex our religiosity, or we want to flex our spirituality, or whatever the case might be. Otherwise, if we actually cared about that person, we would do the one thing that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam consistently did in every one of these situations where he corrected someone else, and that was build a relationship. Like, if I cared about someone, ask him who he is, where he's from, how long has he been here, is he new to the community? You know what I mean? Like, if the moment you engage with someone, it's like, oh, but this guy's actually invested in me, and then you can open up a conversation. Hey, I saw you do such and such, blah blah blah. Like, where'd you learn that, or where'd you get that from? And approach it in a meaningful way where you show that you care, and there's a better chance that the person will actually listen to you instead of walking up to someone and be like, brother, that's a bit out. Come on, bro. Like,
They don't know you even.
It's like I don't know you. Like, you don't even know what I'm doing, and like, who told you? Who said that?
And there's just a lot of hostility there when people do that.
I remember there was a brother. He came up to me one time, and I don't think he realized that was the imam, but he looked at my socks. I was wearing like ankle socks, and he was like, "You can't wipe over those." And I was like, and he's like, no, you can't wipe over those. I was like, listen, I said, number one, I said cotton socks. There's an issue of khilaf over this. I was like, I'm Hanbali, and the Hanabila is something that's completely fine. I said, and if you want to take it a step further, the Lahadiyya say this and this. Ibn Taymiyyah, he allowed it in this situation, but and he was just like, oh my God, like, who is this guy? He was like, yeah, but you know, but he started to engage again, and I said to him, I was like, Akhi, I said Jazakallah khair. And he, you know what I mean? He was like, oh, okay.
He was trying to find something there.
It's like, wait, what are you trying to engage right now? Like, I'm not trying to fight.
Did he see you making wudu, or was he just coming to you saying?
He just saw me in ankle socks, and he felt like he had to say something. Allah bless the brother.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if people feel like this is the way to do Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. But true Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, the first step is to build a relationship with the person. Then go ahead. Like, that is the time you do it. It's Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. By you just coming and imposing on others, you've actually had the opposite happen to you. Right? You haven't fulfilled any goal at that point. The only thing you managed to do is create friction between yourself and the stranger. Yeah, and Allah protect us from that. Like, what kind of brotherhood is that? Yeah, it's odd.
True. No, but how do you recommend people kind of navigate that? Like, let's say you see something in a brother that it isn't good for them.
Sure.
Let's say, for the example that you're friends with them, like know them, you already know them, you already built that relationship.
Absolutely.
How do you kind of approach it and try to advise them in a way where they don't take offense to it, but at the same time it doesn't seem like you're overstepping?
Sure. So you have some. That we're in an era of consent, right? And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think there are some areas where it's a little bit overused and overstepped and abused. But at the end of the day, if someone is, for example, stealing, you know that they steal. Maybe they're stealing small things and trinkets and things like that. And for them, they're like, man, what's the big deal? You know, I mean, it's only like a couple bucks here and there. And you walk up to your friend and be like, yo, like I've noticed something about you. Can I talk to you? Like, I'm really worried. What do you think the kind of response you're going to get at that point?
I mean, there's two. They could be like, no, like, I'm good. Or most likely they'll be like, yeah, sure, what's up?
Thank you. So now that they've opened the door, what can you do? Be like, man, I noticed that you doing X, Y, Z, man. Like, it's not cool, man. Like, I'm genuinely worried about it. It's like, is the money situation okay? You know what I mean? Like, when you come from a place of love and care, the reaction you're going to get 90% of the time, not every time, but 90% of the time is going to be a very positive one, because it's like, oh man, I never really thought about it like that. And because they're already in a position now where they're willing to accept what you have to say, versus you walking out like, hey, you shouldn't steal. Number one, he knows that he shouldn't steal.
Yeah.
All of us know that we shouldn't steal. But also, because of the way that you said it to him, he's going to be, or he'll be like, hey, you don't even know what's going on with me. Are you going to just come up to me and tell me, what I'm doing?
You don't understand.
You don't understand. Or how are you going to accuse me when I don't feel I'm stealing? Versus, had I opened up the conversation, I'd actually be able to hear a little bit of his perspective. And then you can, like, you know what I mean? At that point, you can always challenge the perspective and be like, oh, what's going on here? What's going on there? The other thing that I think is important to keep in mind also, just because I follow a particular opinion in a particular school of thought or whatever the case might be, I'm in no position to impose that on someone else. If I see someone praying something, or if I see someone praying up, or like below their navel or above their navel, this is not Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. Because how can it be prohibiting evil? Is there khilaf on evil? No. There's no khilaf on evil. And at that point, you're not doing anything. You're not benefiting anyone, because at the end of the day, even the position that I take, I'm blindly following that position. How can I impose that onto someone else? even the mujtahid, even the one who is an independent critical thinker, he's in a position to share. This is the dalil, this is the how I use the dalil, and this is the hukam that I extracted from it, and he can lay out the entire mechanics of how he came to the conclusion that he did. But even he's not in a position to impose.
So if you impose, then what have you really done at that point?
You haven't convinced this person at all, like of anything. So yeah, I think like these are the two big confusions that happen. Like number one, we don't build a relationship, and number two, we don't actually know how to define amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar. Yeah, what is something that is very clear? Someone's not praying. No, come on, man. That there's no. It's gonna be well, the scholars differ over. No, man, there's no difference of opinion. On that. Or somebody's lying. Just a difference of opinion on lying, eating pork, drinking alcohol, not paying zakat. These are things like, we should definitely approach our brothers and sisters. Like, this is where we actually care. It's like, oh no, well, he didn't, she didn't give zakat on her jewelry. Like, really? Come on, man. Like okay, that's the opinion she follows. Like, what does it matter to you?
How does that impact you?
You have your opinion. It's like, okay, does your wife, daughters, do they give zakat on their jewelry? Yeah. Okay. Well, what are you worried about that? Is there another opinion that exists? Yeah. Okay. Then leave it be.
Definitely. SubhanAllah. I mean, I think people just think everyone wants to do the right thing.
Sure.
And sometimes people just lose sight of the fact that other people have different opinions than them.
Yeah.
And that everyone else is also trying to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
And that's just kind of like the dynamic between everyone. Everyone's trying to do the right thing, but the right thing for different people are different things.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think the intention, inshallah, is
I hope
is a good intention behind it. But I mean, at the end of the day,
I feel it's virtue signaling.
Was that?
I feel it's virtue signaling, personally. It's like, what makes your opinion more valid than mine?
Yeah.
Because they're both opinions at the end of the day. Like the things that we spoke about, the 5 pillars of Islam, the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is agreed upon, that are muharram, that are impermissible, those, I agree. Those definitely fall within that realm. All of this other stuff, how can you be so sure that that's right? If there's a difference of opinion, I follow what I believe to be right. But one of the unique elements of Islam that is many times is overlooked is there can be 2 right answers. And that's tough sometimes to grasp, right? Like, what do you mean there can be 2 right answers? No, there can be. But it's not necessarily what's right for him is what's right for me. Like, I might be okay with it. I might be completely fine with it. Buying a home. I think this is such a controversial issue. Such a big issue. It's like, oh, he bought his house, with conventional banking. But okay. Does he have fatwa? Like, to stand behind what he's doing? Yeah. Do you disagree with it? Yeah. Okay, then don't buy a house with like through conventional banking. Like, that's your choice. But that's an individual choice. Just like you make your decision, he made his decision. Does he want paradise?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just like you want paradise. Our paths don't need to be 100% in sync.
As long as the fundamentals
As long as the fundamentals are there. Exactly. And what are the fundamentals? We already spoke about.
Yeah.
But those 5 pillars and the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam have made it 100% clear that these are haram. Everything else, man, okay, come on, let's sit down, let's talk. I'm okay with having a conversation.
Yeah.
But the moment that you say, well, no, okay, why no?
Definitely. In your 3 years that you've kind of been here, how has your experience been? Has it been a net positive, a net neutral?
No, it's been good, man.
It's been good, alhamdulillah.
I've enjoyed my time here.
Alhamdulillah.
It's the community is like really diverse, and not just like diverse from different spaces and different places. It's like just a huge diversity of thought. It's so you have like people who are like ultra conservative, and then people who are like more liberal. And it's like you're dealing with all of these different kinds of people. Some people, I've had bros come up to me and they're like, okay, well, how do you understand the ayah like this and blah blah, and they're looking at it from a completely linguistic standpoint, like comparing the other words, and I was like, okay, but over here, these are some of the reasons that the verse was revealed, so it gives us a little bit more contextual understanding. They're like, yeah, but other verses, you know what I mean? So it's really interesting engaging with people who have like different mindsets, and it keeps me sharp when you engage with so many different people. The thing I like about Northern Virginia that I feel is unique from different other parts of the United States is like the Islamic literacy is like higher here than it is in other parts of the U.S., which is nice because if you say something, you better come right. If,
Yeah. Because
you know,
someone's gonna find
someone's
something.
gonna be like, no, I don't think so. So that part I definitely do enjoy. There are different ways that I personally, as an imam, gauge if the trajectory is good or not. A brother asked me, he's like, how do you know you're doing well? I said, well, there are a few things that happen that I feel show that I gained some traction.
Mhm.
And he's like, what are those? I said, I've had people walk up to me and they'll be like, hey, Sheikh, can I talk to you? And then they themselves will be like, no, it's cool. I'll catch you later. So I'm like, okay, alhamdulillah. People feel that I'm accessible
Mhm.
and they don't feel like I'm always trying to run away. So I was like, all right, that's good. That's a huge sign of success. The other thing is the fights in the musalla have decreased.
The fights in the Muslim,
Yes. There's
like debates
oh,
or
they're like, and I'm okay with being challenged. I think anybody, like, no one is above being challenged.
yeah.
I think this is something that's really
It's also
important.
a good thing
It's
to
a
be
good thing.
challenged. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not the final authority on anything. Our final
Yeah.
authority is Allah and His
subhanahu
Messenger.
wa- Yeah.
That's all I said. Right? That's it. So if people are challenging me, I think that's healthy, but there's a way to challenge, right? There's a way to not be disrespectful. Like, you shouldn't be yelling. You shouldn't be doing these things. Sometimes there'd be fights between people in the masjid, or people would fight about like certain administrative issues. So my brother was like, well, what is that indicative of? If there are less fights in the musalla, I said, people feel like their voices are being heard. Because otherwise, if someone is not able to vent and share what they feel or the frustration that they have, what are they going to do?
You're gonna fight.
They're going to fight and they're going to explode and they're going to come angry and frustrated. And if they don't feel like their solutions are being, like their problems are, there's no reasonable solutions to their problems, they're just going to get frustrated.
Mhm.
So, alhamdulillah, I think it's
And
been
in the
good that
3
way.
years so I mean, I was actually gonna ask you,
Yeah.
have you seen the community kind of growing and getting better, quote unquote?
So better is subjective. It depends on what it is that you're trying to do and the goals that you have for the community. So for myself, I might have a personal religious leaning. I might have a personal political leaning, but that is not necessarily representative of the congregation. So as an imam, you need to figure out, right, what spectrum are you going to operate in? What kind of people are you going to bring in? Because being very honest, there are certain people who are just not going to listen to me, right? Because I'm not part of their clique.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I can't, it's impossible for me as an individual to cater to everyone.
Mhm.
So what is my job as an imam? It's like, okay, well, if this clique is part of the masjid, well, do you know what that means? They're part of the community. And I have to be humble enough to bring in someone who I might not like,
Yeah.
because that part of the community still needs to be served.
Mhm.
Well, why'd you bring so-and-so? Yeah, I don't really 100% agree with him, but you know what? He serves this segment of the population.
And that
And-
population is our
And,
population.
and that's our community. You know what I mean? It's not, I can't impose my religious values and ideals, right? Especially understanding it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
And there are people who are always going to be, even Islamically, a little bit more risk prone, and people who are more risk tolerant, right? So the risk prone people are the ones who might be a little bit more religiously liberal. And the risk, like tolerance, like if they have a risk averse, those people are going to be like more religiously conservative. And you can have those, right? It's okay to have that space. And just like the Hadith Bani Qurayza, where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "La tusalliyanna ahadukum hatta tasilu Bani Qurayza." He said, not a single one of you should pray. And he said it like what is known as tawqid, or affirmation, multiple times within the same sentence.
Mhm.
It's like, you absolutely should not pray in any way, shape, or form until you reach Bani Qurayza. So the companions split. Some of them were like, no, we are supposed to understand that literally, that we should not pray Asr until we get there. Other companions were like, no, man, like, you have to understand what he was saying. He was trying to encourage us to move quickly,
Mhm.
but he didn't actually mean like, let Salat al-Asr go.
Yeah.
And what does that tell us, right? There are people who will always have those leanings. And the Prophet ﷺ, the amazing thing about that whole situation, when it came back to him, he never said which one was right.
SubhanAllah.
Just to show, like, hey, look, there's
Okay to have.
it's okay. Yes, it's okay to differ. And in front of him, so I said, because if differing wasn't allowed, he would have been like, no, these guys are right and you should have followed them. Like, you guys make Toba, you guys made a mistake. And he had every right to do that. So I said, no. But in this situation, he's like, and people ask, like, okay, well, why did that have to have differences of opinion? Why did the companions have differences of opinion?
They were right there.
They're
with
right
the
there. They're in front of the Prophet ﷺ. It's, you know what I mean? Like, they differed immediately, like in front of him. And the same wording, the same statement, the same people who are receiving it, amongst them, they differ in how to understand it. What do you think is going to happen like 100 years later?
After multiple chains of narration.
Yeah, it's like you're going to have a difference in understanding.
Yeah.
Now, how do we deal with it? We're tolerant, just like the companions were tolerant of each other, and that's really important. I always love that when Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says "Innamal mu'minuna ikhwa," and we're like, yeah, we should be brothers and work together, and blah blah blah. And I thought about the ayah one day. I was like, what? I don't even like all my brothers. What I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But if anybody tries to hurt them or take advantage of them, what am I going to do?
I'm going
to stand up for them, even if I disagree. And I said, SubhanAllah, that's where true brotherhood shows. If we all like the same stuff, where's the challenge? How's that difficult?
It's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's when we differ, that's when the brotherhood is going to show up. So, I thought it was like, when I sat down, I thought about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's amazing that when you ponder over the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how the companions dealt with each other to help really give us context and understanding of how to implement the sunnah.
And that we're not the first people to be feeling this. Like we're
Absolutely.
not. Yeah, like it's been happening
Absolutely.
since the day of the time of the Prophet
Yeah.
sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
I've had a few brothers and sisters come up to me. They're like, Sheikh, the whole qadr thing. And I was like, you know what? You're not the first to have issue with that. They're like, really? I was like, yeah. The companions went to the Prophet ﷺ, and they're like, if everything's written, why should we even do good deeds, right? And I was like, so you don't worry, you're not the first. I said, if they had trouble understanding it, we're gonna have trouble understanding it too.
SubhanAllah. Do you think I'm gonna kind of change it into the direction of the youth?
Sure.
Do you think that, as your kind of position as an Imam of Hijrah, that there's more involvement from the youth when it comes to like the masajid than there has been since you first came here? I know 3 years is kind of
No, that's a good question.
But have you seen like an increase? Have you seen more kind of activeness and well, so I'm not sure what the word is. Involvement, yeah. And like drive within the youth.
No. So the amazing thing about I would say anyone, right? Not just the youth, is if people see something good, they want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment they see momentum, what happens? And even we were just talking previously. I was like, how are you? You're like, man, this month, man, it's just been, and we want to capitalize on that momentum. Why? Because when people see things moving in a positive direction,
they want to.
There's FOMO.
Yeah.
Like, man, I want to be part of that too. And walillah alhamd, the only thing that I worry at Dar al-Hijrah, and this is something that I worry for anybody who operates in the dawah or the clergy space, is fame. In that I see a lot of young professionals becoming attached to me when I want them to be attached to the institution. And that is something that does worry me, because I as an imam should always be the person who empowers the institution and the community. I should not be the crutch.
A tool of the institution.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but I shouldn't be a crutch, meaning that the moment you remove the crutch, what happens? Everything kind of falls down. And I'm happy that people like me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that, but I want people to feel like, no, if I trust the institution and whatever it is that they have to provide, not I trust Imam Farhan and whatever it is that he has to provide. Like, that's part of it for sure. But I wish we could reach a level where that becomes a little bit more holistic.
How do you think people can kind of individually take a look at themselves and be like, you know what, maybe I am kind of attached to a person or a group of people who are part of an organization and not the organization itself.
Yeah. So involve yourself in the organization. A lot of times there's distrust, and I don't mean distrust in the say like we feel that the organization is dishonest. That's not what I mean. Distrust usually means that if I have an idea, or if I will have a project, or if I have initiative, they're not going to do it. That's what I mean by distrust. So how do you increase that? You have to develop pathways and channels for people to contribute. And the moment you open up pathways, people will be like, I can do that. And subhanAllah, I gave after the khutbah one time, I was like, we need to do some like networking stuff. And a guy comes in, he's like, how many servers do you need? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, man, like I have like a warehouse or something like that. He was like, I have a whole bunch. He's like, I was like, I can come set them up for you, and I can do all this and this and that. And I was like, it's so, you know what I mean? Like, you never know. And another time I remember there's a brother, he walked in, I was sitting in the library. He's like, hey, can I catalog all your books? Yeah, I was like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like such strange contributions that I would never have imagined.
Yeah.
But like I said, man, like you create pathways, and the people feel like those pathways can actually be utilized, then they will utilize them.
They feel like they're part of the mission.
They feel like a part of the mission. And not just that, every time it's like, oh, volunteer at the mission. right? Not everything is vacuuming and, janitorial services,
Yeah.
right? Like that's not the only way the masjid in the community can be served. And I'm just giving 2 examples here. You got to be a little creative, and kind of offer up opportunities and show people that, hey, listen, this is not my space. This is our space. I remember I had a young woman. She came to me and she was like, man, I want to do this project, but I don't know if it's important to Dawah Hijra, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, you know how Dawah Hijra determines if a project is important? She's like, what? How? I was like, if it's important to you. Because that means that you're willing to give time and you're willing to give effort and you're going to dedicate yourself to this. And that's one less thing for me, for me to do. I said, the only problem I have is when people are like, shit, we need to do this, this, and this. I said, I only have one question for them. I said, are you going to donate money or time for this? This idea that you have, are you going to donate money or time? And if you're not willing to donate either, you know what? I'm not interested either.
Because if you don't have the commitment, then why should I? Yeah.
I remember one of the brothers, he's like, Sheikh, we need to start a Quran program or whatever. I was like, all right, cool. I think that's the only program at Dawah Hijra I started without taking a commitment. And there were only 2 registrants for the program, and they were both my sons. After that, I was like, never again. Like, now I need to hear either a time or a money commitment.
Yeah. SubhanAllah. I think those are the 2 most valuable things to people nowadays. SubhanAllah. How would you what would you say to someone that says, I don't like going to the masjid because I feel judged there?
Sure.
I don't like going to the masjid because I feel like the people there aren't the same as me.
Yes.
What do you say to those youth, to those people in general?
Sure. Maybe that masjid. How many masajid have you tried? I get it. Like, and I don't even necessarily disagree with that. Saying that, don't allow individual encounters to be a judgment call for an entire institution or entire community. Just like, should I ever judge someone after one meeting? Right? Like, so if we put if we reverse the roles.
Yeah.
And he came up, he was having a bad day. And I was like, man, what a jerk. And that's it. Now I have labeled him and I never want to speak to him again.
Mm-hmm.
Would he think that's fair? But we have to have tolerance, man. Like it's like, we have to do it. Like our skin is just a little, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that we should tolerate abuse.
Yeah.
But we have to learn how to tolerate people's self-presentation. Sometimes people don't always present themselves in the best way. And I usually advise someone who has a bad experience in the masjid, I said, you only need to ask the person who is accosting you or like being abusive or oppressive or whatever, you only need to ask one question. And they're like, what? I was like, ask them, do you work here? I said, this will disarm a vast majority of the people in the masjid.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have that ammu, or that, you're right, the ammati, like she's coming up to and she's like, oh, you can't run around with your kids and blah, blah, blah. I said, you only need to ask her one question. Do you work here? And the moment she, you know what I mean? Like that's when they'll start tripping up. And I was like, okay, if you don't work here, go get someone who does. I said, or the both of us can go to the imam.
We could talk it out.
And we'll see what's going on. And this will diffuse a vast majority of these situations. I've had, unfortunately, I've actually heard this more on the women's side than I have on the men's side, where there are women who just kind of have the self-imposed authority and they will impose it on other sisters in the space and this and that. And they're like, and I was like, number one, you don't have to tolerate abuse. Like, it's amazing how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he prohibits 2 things, right? He prohibits oppressing others. He also prohibits us from putting ourselves in situations where we allow ourselves to be abused. And if I have the ability to remove myself, just remove myself. Just like the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, my kind of hadkum, he says, kunna mustada'afin fil ard. Oh, that, we were weak, oppressed. And the angels are like, okay, go to the hellfire. And they're like, well, wait, what? It's like, why? Because you allowed yourself to be oppressed. That we are obligated to remove ourselves from situations where we can. If I can't, I'm oppressed, right? There's nothing I can do. But if it's like, so like I keep getting beat and the exit's right here, and I'm just sitting there like taking it. Now I'm responsible because number one, I'm not standing up for myself. I'm not using the pathways Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for me. Like it just leads to a lot of like a victim mindset as well. And the Muslim is always empowered, always. It's amazing. Whether it be physically, mentally, spiritually, like he's always empowered, and we have to be like that.
Mm-hmm. SubhanAllah. just a quick break.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of talk about?
I think you said that you wanted to ask like my goals of becoming an imam, or like why did I become an imam?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to. Like
Okay.
it was never part of my career path.
Mhm.
Like one day I'm gonna grow up and be an imam. No, I did not want to be an imam. Interestingly enough, I think the year before I was coming back to the States, I sent an email to anybody who had a public email address from the public speaker circuit.
Yeah.
Right. So anybody you can think of, like all the major names, like I was sending them an email. I was like, hey, listen, I'm graduating next year. I'm coming back to the States. I don't really know what I want to do, but I don't want to be an imam. Like 95% of them were like, yeah, you have to be an imam. Like,
SubhanAllah.
so
And here you are.
here I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
SubhanAllah.
it's really interesting, but like just subhanAllah, the trajectory Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put me in.
Yeah.
And I always laugh. I was like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took me from al-Qura to Dar al-Hijra. So like, for those of you that get it, it's from Makkah to Medina. Like al-Qura is the name for Makkah,
Yeah.
and Dar al-Hijra is the name for Medina. So it was it's a bit ironic. I do have a series on the role of the imam. I can share that with you, inshallah.
Definitely, inshallah.
But,
Definitely share that with our community.
But it's a discussion on like, when you seek knowledge, what are some of the career paths that are available to you? To what extent do you want to seek knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a good discussion.
Definitely, inshallah. I think a lot of people would benefit from that, especially in the more of like the youth,
Yeah.
because they kind of still try to figure out if they want to be students of knowledge, or if they want to kind of do it as like a hobby.
Yeah.
Because I believe Imam Farhan on the first episode was talking about this,
Yeah.
where you can either take it as a career and go full
Absolutely.
out,
Yeah.
or you could do it as a hobby, and that's okay to do it as a hobby. Like,
Absolutely.
there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But just having the intention, and then when you have the intention to actually put the work in.
Absolutely.
Isn't it
100%.
that? Well, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
It was really great having you. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, we could kind of bring you out again for a future episode about something else, but isn't it?
No.
But no, thank you for being here. Thank you for kind of sharing your insights and your experiences.
Allah
If you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure that you subscribe, follow us, inshallah. If you have any recommendations for anyone that you want to see on the podcast, DM us on Instagram at DC Muslim Youth. And again, thank you for being here. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.